Welcome to the CourseCREEK podcast, streamcast show that we do from time to time with our partners and with our clients. And I'm super excited today to do a quick little interview with our client and somebody whom I personally very much respect on many different levels, the founder of Digital Horizon Services and a veteran of our services. Thank you for serving, Ruble. So let's get right to it. This guy has amazing stories to tell, no doubt. I give to thee Ruble Henderson from Digital Horizon Services. Thank you for taking the time this morning.
Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing great. Apart from my squeaky chair this morning, I'm doing great, and I'm really grateful to have you here and give us the opportunity to kind of learn about your business and your experience and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So what is Digital Horizon Services? What is the service? What is it that you do for folks? And what's the problem that you solve?
Yeah. So Digital Horizon Services is a video on demand professional development training organization. Okay. We primarily focus on government contracting and there are two sides to that. So you've got the government contractors who are trying to win the business from the government, and you've also got the government who are trying to be good stewards of the tax dollars that they know that they are stewards of. So one of the challenges that we ran into is that in the marketplace is that government training is unbelievably boring. It just is. It is painful. And as my partner and I were teaching a variety of professional development courses, from leadership and communication to financial management, project management, program management, acquisition development, etc. So we were teaching a lot of these courses and students were just flocking to us. They were just saying, man, this is the best course we've ever taken. And I mean, I love teaching, but I know I'm not the greatest thing since sliced bread with teaching. I happen to love it. But I thought, what's going on here? Why are we getting the responses that we're getting? And I realized that a lot of the instructors that are in this field, they come in and they talk about the things that they know, and they truly are subject matter experts. These people are good at what they do, but they tend to teach in a way that is just reading off of slides. It's like I could go read a book and get the same thing, or probably get more because I could do it faster than having to sit through this class. And at the same time, students were telling us over and over again that, man, it's really hard to juggle my job and going through these courses, because these courses are 8-9 hours a day, and they could be one day, they could be 15 days. It really just depends on what certification they're trying to get, what the course content is, etc. And so they said, man, we wish we had an option to do this, video on demand. And so that was the point at which we said, well, we went to the contractor that we were working with, the prime contractor, because I was a subcontractor along with my partner. And we said, hey, we're hearing this over and over and over again. And they said, man, we are up to our eyeballs in the business that we're already doing. Why don't you go do that? I said, okay. So that was the genesis of Digital Horizon Services, was recognizing that there was a tremendous desire for the teaching style that my partner and I use, and that there was a gap in the market where people could not have flexibility in their development, in their professional development. So we stepped in to fill that gap.
That's just great. So you're taking feedback from the learners, which is page 1, paragraph 1 on how to do a great course, right? Certainly part of it. And the learners were telling you, we need something self-paced. We need self-paced content, asynchronous content that we can consume on our schedule. Curious, we know how powerful sort of live cohort work can be. And we know that, and our listeners will now know that there's a blended learning, a cohort live training component.
Yes.
With your training, it's not just only blended, if I understand.
That's true. Correctly. That's true. And that's a really important point. Because one of the things that we recognize is, look, what we're trying to do today, we're not going to take over the market, because there is a strong desire for live in-person learning. Yeah. And so we decided, well, is there a way for us to blend this so that we can get the engagement that we know students crave and that we really enjoy as instructors, and get that dynamic experience in the classroom, combined with the flexibility of being able to do large chunks of the certification at their own pace. And so we developed a hybrid solution for this particular marketplace.
Right, right. And well, no surprises. You worked with CourseCREEK on a lot of this, the instructional design, and you and I did some camera work together and some content production and that sort of thing. Let's just pivot for a moment. So I think you guys were fairly new to creating the being course creators when we came on board.
Brand new.
Yeah, at least certainly in this context. Hello, I want to talk to you real quickly about a learning management system that CourseCREEK recommends quite often. It's called LearnWorlds. You have the opportunity on LearnWorlds to license your content to large organizations. LearnWorlds has design templates that look beautiful, fluid, and silky to the eye. You can give your students badges and seals and do a lot of fun things to encourage them to keep moving on. So if you're looking for a great learning management system, we do recommend LearnWorlds, and of course, we can help you put it together and get it on its feet. Thank you. What are some lessons that you learned just in regards to hard lessons? You're not a private anymore. You're now a sergeant at making online courses. Right. What are some of the war stories, so to speak, or the lessons that you've learned that you might be able to share with folks in regards to somebody that's going to go make an online course for the first time?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is, and this is where CourseCREEK jumped into our narrative, was it's really important early on, especially, to really focus on the things that you do well. There are a lot of narratives around the startup space where, hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, figure everything out. And there's merit to that. That's a really important thing. Are you willing to put the hard work in to figure out how to do all the little pieces to create the business that you're trying to create? That's true. And at the same time, you can get so bogged down in a lot of those details of things that you aren't particularly good at, and it will take the energy and the passion out of the things that you are good at. You're not starting a business because you want to learn how to do these things that you don't know how to do. You're starting a business because you have a passion and a skill that has a marketplace. And so by, at least early on, by being able to find ways of inviting other people into the journey with you, that they are good at things that you are not, and complimenting you, that frees you up to really focus on the things that you're passionate about and that you're good at. In the example with you guys, Robert, I learned about you through a good friend of mine who happens to be a friend of yours, a mutual friend. And he said, man, this guy does a lot of online content, and he trains people how to instruct through video. And so what that allowed us to do by partnering with you, you were teaching us the fast course, the crash course, and this is how you do online instruction and how you build the back-end infrastructure, which we didn't know anything about. So that allowed us to say, okay, Robert and his team are really helping to lay the groundwork for the operational side of what we're doing, but now let's lean into what we are doing and let's dream about what content we can actually put forward. And so that just allowed us to A, get quality products starting to put together, B, learn from other people's mistakes. Robert, you didn't come out perfect right off the bat. Like, you've made tons of mistakes over your career, and I got to learn from the mistakes that you made because you were saying, hey, don't do this, do that. Why? Because I've made that mistake and you don't want to go down that road. And so that allowed us to really focus on the things that we are good at. And it allowed us to avoid a lot of pitfalls, which hopefully later in our conversation, we'll talk about, some of the big lessons learned from the career perspective. And that ties in. What we're talking about right here really ties back into something that has been on my mind a lot lately, which is more of a career lesson.
Well, why don't we pivot and go right to that? Let's that's a cue. So what's the career lesson? Continue. This is
So I'm 44 at this point. All right. I'm mid-career, midlife. And one of the things that I've realized about my generation, which, I'm at the tail end of Gen X, and Gen X had this mantra of like throwing off the yoke of the previous generations, like screw you people, we're going to go our own way. And that was our generation. That was the identity of the generation, was do your own thing.
The Breakfast Club.
Exactly. And at the very end, what's the very last scene of that movie? Yeah. Fist in the air of him walking across the field. Yeah, I'm going to do it my way, right? And one of the casualties of that particular mentality is that you lose touch with what has been done before you. You lose touch with all the great lessons and all the hard work that the generations before you have put in. And with time, you hopefully garner a humility that says, man, for as successful as I am, I would never have gotten where I was or where I am if it weren't for, and you start naming people, like these people that came before me are what their work enabled me, empowered me to be successful, to have the, to have the success that I've enjoyed. So mentorship, there's a word for that, and that's mentorship. And mentorship has been lost on my generation. And I say that because our mantra was, we're going to do it our way. Screw you guys. We're going to go our own way. But having someone come alongside you and mentor you in areas of your life that you haven't figured it all out, that, and let's be honest, none of us have figured it all out in any area of our lives. But having the opportunity to sit under someone and have them mentor you and teach you in different ways. And I, depending on the area of my life, I could name people from any number of areas of my life, but I can look back and I can honestly say, there's no way I ever would have succeeded the way that I have if I did not have that person raising me up. I'll give an example of that from my personal life. My parents, I love them. They're wonderful. They have so many wonderful attributes. Early in their marriage, they were not good with money. They were not very disciplined with money. And I remember many a time of, back to school and the excitement of getting all the new clothes. And I rarely could get very many new clothes because we didn't have that kind of that kind of money. And I remember going to the department store, my mother, going through and dressing us up for all these different outfits for school. And then we would put them on layaway. And it didn't make sense to me. Well, why couldn't we just take the clothes? Well, it was because we couldn't afford it. And we had to go on a payment plan in order to, over time, pay for it. And once we had paid for it, then we could have the clothes. And I can only imagine it's not just that I could imagine. I've had conversations with my parents about it, and especially my dad. It was embarrassing to him. He felt a lot of shame over the fact that he couldn't provide for his children in the way that he wanted to. I mean, were we in abject poverty? No, he was doing the best he could. And I don't hold any of that against him. But the fact was, they were not good at managing money. And I remember at 13 years old, my dad sitting me down and having me do the budget with him because he was finally learning how to do a budget. And I was doing the family budget, and it was, stark, to say the least, to look at the fact that we don't really have a lot of money. So I was learning from my father, and he was teaching me what not to do because he'd made all these mistakes. And that was a really important dynamic to learning is, hey, these are mistakes that I have made. On the flip side, I had a mentor in college who was the chair of my department. Her husband made an offer to her senior class each year, and it was open to anybody who wanted to take him up on it. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to budget. I'm going to teach you how to manage money effectively. And this guy was very, very successful with managing money. And so I sat down with him, and not only did he say, hey, here are the mistakes, a lot of which I had learned from my father, in my father's humility, saying, these are the mistakes that I have made, and I don't want you to make these same mistakes. But he said, now let me teach you the positive side. Now let me teach you, this is what to do, not just what not to do. Let me teach you what to do and why. And none of it was sexy. None of it was like some whiz bang, hey, make this investment and you're going to be a millionaire the rest of your life. It was hard work, but it was little things. It was little ideas that say, hey, if you need to, use the envelope method. Put the money in the envelope. And when you run out of money, you don't spend any more on that category, whatever that category was. But he also gave me a really interesting tip, and that was, For the first month, don't say no to anything. Live the life that you would normally live, but track everything. And then at the end of the month, you can begin to categorize everything and see, well, how are you spending your money? How much are you spending on entertainment? How much are you spending on food? How much are you spending on gas? How much are you spending on education? Whatever the categories are. And then now you can make an educated decision around where are you going to make your cuts? How are you going to change in order to get to where you're going? And it led to a concept that I've taught for years now to my students, which Robert, have you ever heard of the SMART goals? And it's cool. It's totally cool if you haven't heard of it, but it's a trendy thing. SMART goals, SMART.
I want to say that I probably have, but it's not. I'm not conscientious of it. I'm not aware at the moment.
Sure.
Yeah. What? Give me a refresher.
Yeah. So this idea of SMART goals, it's SMART. Be specific. So when you make goals, be specific with them. If you have these vague goals, how will you ever know if you've ever achieved it, if it's kind of vague and it's scripting? So be specific. The second is measurable. If you can't measure it, then you have no idea if you're making progress. You have no idea if you've achieved anything. So be specific with what you want. Make them measurable. Make it attainable. This is something that plagued my life. Is I had this pithy little saying that I would say, I shoot for the moon because even if I fail, I just might land on, or I shoot for the sun. And if I fail, I just might land on the moon. It sounds great. It also leads to a life of depression because you're not achieving any of the goals that you set out to achieve. Like, make sure that this is within your grasp, that you could actually achieve this.
Yeah, right.
And then with R, so SMAR. So with that, you want it to be relevant. You want your goal to be relevant to the things that you're trying to do in life. Don't make it random and have it sitting outside of any other part of what you're trying to do in life. It needs to be relevant to the trajectory of your life. And lastly, it's time-based. If you make sure it's time-based, now you're putting a parameter around, okay, I am going to achieve X within this period of time. Now, that's something that I've heard a lot, and it's really valuable. It's a great tool to setting goals and getting momentum in your life. But this guy, the husband of this college professor of mine, he said, that's a great tool. Let me teach you one other piece that's missing from all of that makes the difference between the people who grind it out and who actually achieve the goals, and those who write the goals and then never achieve them. So, okay, what's that? And he said, SMART-ER goals, ER. He said, add an ER to the end.
Okay.
He said, the first one is the E is talking about evaluate, which means on a regular basis, come back and see, how am I doing? Like, if you have a 90-day goal, then every week you should just check in briefly and say, how am I doing? Measuring, looking at your milestones, looking at your progress and saying, am I on track? So evaluate yourself. And lastly, and this is the key that has changed my life, and that is reward. He said, so often people will set tough goals and they'll grind it out, and it is a miserable experience because it's hard, and they get to the end and they don't even know how to celebrate because they didn't even celebrate along the way. And he said, what makes setting goals fun is achieving them, and what makes them sustainable is actually rewarding yourself along the way. He's like, look, if your goal is in financial management is getting control of your spending habits and then setting money aside for something that you are trying to do, whatever that may be, because everybody's goals are different. He said, look, what if you go out for coffee every day? You go to Starbucks every day and you get a coffee. Well, that's a really, really expensive habit. He said, so you need to cut that out. But if you're on track and you're meeting your goals you're meeting your milestones for each week, you're making the progress that you're looking for, man, reward yourself with a coffee once a week. Do something small that really does bring you pleasure and celebrate that last week. Now there's a reward for the hard work that you put in, and it's not just 90 days of grinding and you're exhausted by the time you get to the end and you don't even have the energy to celebrate. He said, fill yourself back up by giving yourself a little reward. Now it's fun. Now you're looking forward to the next one and the next one and the next one. And then when you get done, celebrate with something significant and big. That doesn't mean it has to be expensive.
Yeah.
It just means it has to be significant to you. It's more than just your little weekly coffee.
Yeah.
You know, you could, whatever. I mean, fill in the blank of what that could be. So for instance, for me, when I accomplish something really big, man, I want to go away for a weekend with my wife.
Yeah.
That's the celebration, is just to be able to spend 2 days with no kids. And I love my kids, but without those demands, and just to be able to sit and enjoy my wife, enjoy her company, go out to dinner with her, go for walks, whatever. Like that would be a big, but that's still a big deal. Like it's a weekend away. You have to find all the childcare. It's the expense of going out, but it's worth it because that's the celebration for something big that I just achieved. So the E and the R at the end, those were introduced to me. I didn't make that up. That's not my genius. That was this mentor of mine.
Yeah.
And I could point to a bunch of other examples across my life of people who stepped in and said, hey, I can really help you in this area. Why don't you come alongside and learn from me, both from the negative and from the positive. So that's true. That's true of business. It's true of every aspect of your life, spiritual, business, you know, personal life, whatever, fitness goals, all of it.
Two things come to mind after listening to that. Thank you. It's great.
Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind is, you know, I've had a teacher training program in my other life for many years, and in some sense, I'm sort of training teachers again, aren't I? In a way, with CourseCREEK. And you know, a true teacher, a true mentor, a true instructor, when you see one. I know a great one when I see one. I know what they look like. I know how they behave. I know their body language, and that's what it looks like, folks. That's what it looks like, because it's overflowing with passion. Ruble wants to mentor. He wants to teach. He wants to coach, and we went off, you know, the script here just because that's what he wants to do, and it's fantastic. Anyways, that's just great. I want to compliment you on that. The other thing is when I've noticed that, and you do need to reward yourself a little, you know, along the way. And the one thing that I've noticed about that, my own wiring, is it doesn't have to be a trip to Europe. It doesn't have to be an expensive, elaborate thing. You know, maybe from time to time that might be great on occasion or something, but it can just be, for me, it's just driving to catch him and have dinner at my favorite restaurant by myself. I'm fine with that, you know?
Yes.
And, yeah.
Great example. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. You know, and what I tell my students is, man, setting goals is hard. Don't make it miserable.
Yeah.
You know? Like, do you want to keep doing this 10 years from now? Like, you can't make it a miserable experience. So reward yourself, like, and make it fun.
And do you find yourself going into the sort of the life coaching realm? You're touching on that with your digital horizon services students from time to time, because it's sort of hard, it's difficult as a teacher not to sort of and
it's inextricable.
And they appreciate that. It's interesting how that will then feed back and add value to the core content. Because one thing I've noticed about teaching, you know, in myself and others, when I see good coaches, and just even reflecting back to university years, is the best teachers are always the ones that have passion and are entertaining. There's like entertainment value there. Like there's something charismatic, there's something sort of fun to watch that goes beyond and past the core boring content.
Yep. That's something that is the willingness. There's an ability to go off script, and there's also the willingness to go off script. And the ability is twofold. The knowledge, certainly, but it's also the ability to understand, okay, what road are we going down? What are the boundaries of that road in terms of like a tangent from the content? And how is this relevant to the larger picture of what we're talking about? And even when you're in the minutia of the content, if you can't connect that back to the big picture, then a lot of times you'll just lose students. You'll lose them in all the details. And I have found, you know, it's helpful for me in my teaching that I'm a meta narrative kind of guy. Okay, so if you give me a bunch of random facts, I'm going to forget all of it. If you give me a construct to think about it, And now I have a framework in my mind. And then you start giving me all these facts. I have somewhere to put them in my head. And now I remember all that stuff. And that's important as an instructor, because when you're going down some tangent, like a student asks a question that's relevant to the conversation at hand, but it's going way off to the side of where the content would be going. But it's important because it's relevant. But B, if this student is asking this and you have a cohort of students who are all coming from similar backgrounds or have a similar career trajectory or similar goals, odds are they've all run into it, or at least a good number of them have run into the same thing. They just haven't asked the same question. So there's an opportunity for a variety of people to learn, even if it seems like it's somewhat of a tangent in the moment. But being able to recognize where that tangent is going, and then, okay, how does this relate back to, how does this tie back into the big picture? And being able to draw that picture for everybody.
Mhm.
And even more so, and this is the challenge of video on demand, pure video on demand, is you don't have that cohort, that live one-on-one. But any of us who are doing live sessions on the side or in conjunction with our video on demand, we have the opportunity to do this. And that is, ask the questions back to the student. So this is another really, really key piece, is our Western style of teaching is lecture. You shut up and sit there and listen to me pour pearls of wisdom on you, versus more of an Eastern style. And I think a blending of the two is what makes a really interesting and engaging class. An Eastern style is asking a lot of questions and allowing them to come to it. And I say that there's a reason why, if you ever go through therapy, if you go to a psychiatrist and you lay there on their couch, they're not going to sit there and lecture to you all the things that are wrong with you. Odds are within an hour or two, they know pretty clearly what's going on with you. But they're not going to do that. They're going to ask questions, because the power is in your own revelations. It's you coming to the conclusions that they've already known for a while, and they're laying the breadcrumbs through questions. There's a reason why people, when they heal from traumatic events in their life, why it's such a powerful experience for them. It's because they were the ones that came to that conclusion. They weren't just told the answers,
Yeah.
So
Force your students to do the work.
Exactly.
Certainly, there will be times when I'm teaching, and a student will be, gosh, it's not working quite right, or it's not feeling quite right. What's the name of that thing that I learned in your book? What is it? And you can just tell the body language as they're asking me to feed it to them.
Yes.
And oftentimes I sort of play a little game with them, which is, I forget what is it? What's it called? Why don't you tell me?
Yeah.
So I forgot. I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Game.
Yeah.
It's the old. The grade school kid kind of coming up to the teacher and asking to find something about, they're going to write a report on whales or something of this nature. He says, I'll go back and find the answer.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, when it's not fed to you, it's certainly going to be retained much better.
Yes, because to your point, you had to work for it.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn more from what you worked for than what you were just given. So, even when students go off on these tangents and they ask these questions, I'll pause for a moment and I'll say, well, what do you guys think? Let's open it up to the rest of you. Like, what do you guys think? Talk to me. And if it's just a one-on-one, then I'll ask questions that will help guide their thoughts. But, and when I'm more tired, I might just give them an answer.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
That'll happen from time to time too.
How much energy do I have? What kind of sleep did I get last night? I don't have time for this. I'm just going to answer the question and move on.
All right. So I want to get to sort of towards the end of our interview here. I have two more really cool questions, and we're going to skip a few because the questions that I had for you aren't nearly as cool as what we just got from you. So that was great. Thank you. The hero story, an inspiration story. Everybody has one of some degree or another. Share with us, could be anything, wouldn't have to be related to your business, anything where you felt like you'd been kicked in the teeth or extreme adversity, and that you rose like a phoenix and found inner strength and somehow, kind of about what you're talking about, push forward, and in the end you can look back and see some success that came out of that.
Yeah.
So sort of a story of perseverance, if you would, please. Something to inspire people. Something. Give us some theater.
Yeah.
Tell a story.
I've been through a variety of ups and downs in my life. I've had some pretty big highs and some pretty big lows. And I guess that's a preface to say there's a number of stories I could draw from here. Um, but a few years back, in fact, part of what led me to teach. So let me say this. I have always been a teacher. I've always been a teacher. I love it. I remember a time I was living in south side of Atlanta, and I left a prominent job. I was gonna have to leave anyway because I was going into the active duty military, and so there was kind of a set timeline anyway. But a friend of mine had asked me to move in with him and to leave Illinois, Chicago area, and move down to Atlanta. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And for the life of me, I could not get a job, just nothing. So I would spend my time kind of just in this neighborhood, and it was pretty poor. I mean, we had just recently graduated from college. We had nothing but debt. I had no job. Like, we couldn't afford anything. We were living in a minority neighborhood. We were the only two white people anywhere around. And the kids would be out playing, which was fine. Actually, I had a wonderful experience in the neighborhood. It was great. The people were fantastic. I loved it. I loved that time. The job side was difficult, but I loved the time and the people. And the kids, teenagers like 12, 13, 14, they would all be out playing sports, just street sports, and so they'd be throwing a football around, and they'd be playing basketball, and they'd be running around. And I love weird sports. That's just, I've always been sort of on the fringe. I've never been one for the big sports, not because I probably because I wasn't very good at them. Let's be honest. Like, I was not very good at baseball. I wasn't very good at football, basketball, whatever. But I loved rock climbing. I loved wrestling, which is really what I did most. I played Frisbee. I played a lot of Frisbee, and I loved it. In college, I would literally walk my Frisbee, which is ridiculous, I know, but I enjoyed doing it. And I would just pick a target, 50 feet away. And I would say, okay, I'm only allowed to do this kind of throw. And I would throw it until I'd hit it. And I'd try and reduce how many times it took me to hit it, get better. I love Frisbee. So I've got my Frisbee out there, and there are these kids playing around. I don't even know if these kids have ever seen a Frisbee before, because it's not a football, it's not a baseball, it's not a basketball. And they saw me doing these goofy throws, and they're like, man, how are you doing that? What is that? And so I'd say, oh, let me show you. And I'd show them these throws, and I'd work with them. And I'm telling you what, by the end of that summer, those kids could throw better than I could. And some of that stuff, like, it was so much fun to see the light come on and to see them do something that they had never even imagined before. And it was a blast. It was a great time. I've always been a teacher. I've just never done it professionally. And I went through this stretch of, I've been in sales for a long time and consulting for a bit. And I was part of a management consulting firm that ultimately had a downturn, an unfortunate downturn. And so I, along with almost everybody else in the firm, lost their jobs. And I was going through this stretch of, man, what do I do now? I know that I know that I shouldn't be doing what I used to be doing, but I don't know where to go and what to do. And a friend of mine said, well, I just started doing this teaching, professional development stuff. Like, I think you'd be really good at it. And I said, what? No, I've never done anything like that. He said, well, why don't you just try? So I interview. At the end of the interview, I end up getting a job offer and as a contractor, and ended up doing this. It turns out I fall in love with it. I love teaching, and I was finally getting paid to do what I did all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But here's the background to that. Here's what's going on behind the scenes. This was months and months. Like, this was almost a year stretch of just nothing from a professional. I wasn't getting paid. I was doing odd jobs here and there to try and make ends meet. And during that time, I spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time just in silence, a lot of time sitting in my backyard, just staring at the world around me. I would get up early in the morning. I wouldn't let myself sleep in. I would get up early in the morning. I would watch the sunrise. I would listen to the sounds around me. I would close my eyes. I would pray to God. I would ask for guidance and whatnot. And it was in that silence, it was in that space of all the distractions, all the worries, all the things are just quiet. And you watch the earth wake up day after day after day. And I felt small in like the healthiest way. Like, these trees were here long before me, and they're going to be here long after me. Like the worries that are wrecking me right now, they're going to disappear at some point. And how they're going to disappear, I don't know. When they're going to disappear, I don't know. But what I do know is I'm here, I'm breathing, the world is moving on, and it's beautiful. The sunrises are beautiful. And I learned to say thank you for little things, but it started there. It started there with seeing the beauty in the sunrise and seeing the world wake up. And that is what sustained me. That and good relationships, good people who love you and who are fighting for you. Those two things are what really kept me going. And at the end of the day, I kept doing what was in front of me. And that's how I landed with teaching. I was just, here's this other opportunity. Okay, it wasn't a grand revelation of, oh, this is what I'm going to go do. It was, well, it's something. Okay, I'll do it. And lo and behold, this passion, this something wakes up inside me that had always been there. And now I get paid to do it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Seek out mentors. Be a mentor. Be grateful for the people who have come before you. Be grateful for the things all around you. Your ability to find the littlest things to say thank you for, whether that's thank you to God, whether that's thank you to someone else, it staves off all the depression, all of that, what could have, would have, should have kind of moments. It's really easy to fall into those places, and you will fall into a deep pit of depression if those are the thoughts that you allow to dominate you. But what breaks the bonds of that kind of cycle is finding little things to say thank you for. And those little things start to pile up. And suddenly you're like, I'm surrounded by all these good things. Like this depression is going to pass. And it doesn't mean you don't feel these things. It doesn't mean you don't experience hard times or difficult emotions, even over, a longer period of time, but it doesn't weigh you down the same way. It doesn't have the power the way it does when that's what dominates your thoughts. So at the end of the day, it's relationships that matter most. And it sounds preachy to say, like, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Some of the most wealthy people I know are some of the most depressed people I know. And some of the other wealthiest people I know are incredibly happy and they're wonderful. But it's because their meaning, their identity is not found in the money. It's not found in the things. It's found in the people. It's found in the relationships. And mentorship is a key piece, because mentorship is not something that is earned, meaning to be mentored by someone else, I didn't earn that. They went out of their way to offer me something that I didn't deserve per se. And there's so much richness and wealth in that offer, to be asked, hey, are you willing to walk with me? Let me teach you some things. And at the flip side, there's a joy, just like, Robert's talking about, we're all teachers here. Probably most likely the audience that are listening to this they're teachers, they're instructors. You're passionate about what it is you do. Well, why are you teachers? Because you love that light coming on in someone else's eye. You love passing something on. It doesn't make you bigger, like, oh, look what I did. No, look what you did. You did that. And the joy of seeing someone else grow up and flourish in things that you have done, and sometimes hopefully doing it even better than you ever did. Like, that's joy. Where does that joy come from? Relationships, and being willing to be a mentor to other people who are coming alongside in a similar journey to you. It doesn't make you better than them. It doesn't make you bigger than them. It makes us both journeymen or journeywomen on this life trail.
Yeah.
And man, what a joy it is to come alongside someone else and to have someone come alongside you. So seek mentorship in both directions. Be a mentee and be a mentor, because that is where the real joy in life is found.
Excellent. Let's just leave it right there. It's great. It's great. This was a very cool interview. It's very much about coaching, mentoring, teaching, being passionate about what you're doing. Okay. Hey, if anybody wants to know more about where to find Digital Horizon services, or maybe get some consulting from you, or who knows, maybe personal life coaching from you at this point, you might be getting a lot of phone calls. Where can they find you?
So Digital Horizon Services, so www.digitalhorizonservices, that's Horizon singular. So Horizon Services. You'll find us there. Our contact information is in there. And LinkedIn, you can also find me in LinkedIn, Ruble Henderson. So, and that's RUBLE, like the Russian currency. Yeah, and my phone number is listed on the website, so it's no secret. It's not that difficult to
Yep.
find me if you want to find me.
Yep.
So that's how you can find me. But I'd love to talk to you guys. I'd love to have a conversation of where are you? What journey are you on? And love hearing that stuff.
For sure. That's right. So if you want to get into the lucrative business of government contracts and stuff, these are the guys that will show you how to do it. And so I'm Robert Lunte with CourseCREEK. It's course as in online courses, Creek as in a little river, CourseCREEK.com. And we are both super happy to have you view our show today. And thank you until next time. Signing off.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
All right. Bye.